How do you start a video? Second video in and you're already getting me at my worst. I just truly don't even know what I'm doing. All right, I wonder how long I'm gonna be this uncomfortable sitting here. Speaking of comfortable, we are doing a wrap up and we are doing it my way. I am in bed, in a t-shirt, no pants, have put zero effort into anything face or hair related, and you absolutely get what you get. Second video, and we're already going downhill. I was gonna go so far as like putting concealer on this, but you know what? Why lie, you know? This is as authentic as it gets. You know how these work. I'm basically just gonna sit here and tell you everything I read in the month of September. It's October now. Yeah. So what I wanna do first, oh my God, Oliver. Can you come here? I'm gonna come pick you up, how about? What I'd like to do, because I like numbers, is kind of go through my stats for the month, and then we'll get into like specific thoughts, because that's how this works. So in the month of September, I read 12 books in total. Hi. With a total of 4,557 pages. Of those 12, 5 of them, of the 12 books, 5 books, why can't I talk? Of the 12 books that I read, 5 of them are a part of a series in some way, and 7 of them are just standalones. There are 9 adult titles and 3 young adult titles. This month I also did 8 physical books, 4 audiobooks, and no ebooks, which is a little bit skewed from my normal numbers. Normally I don't do that many audiobooks and I do a few more ebooks, but this month I really tried to focus on like my owned TBR and like books that I have here that I want to get to because I keep buying books. So speaking of which, 4 of them were borrowed from my library and 8 of them I owned physically. Genre-wise, there were 4 fantasy books, 3 horror, 2 mystery thriller, 1 classic, 1 graphic novel, which was like a horror graphic novel, so whatever category you want to put that in, I just have it classified as graphic novel, and 1 magical realism / literary fiction book. Don't really know where to classify that. Rating wise, there was 1 1-star book, 1 2-star book, 4 3-star books, 4 4-star books, and 1 5-star. And then 1 that I'm just not rating, and I'll get into why. So since this is my first wrap up, I wasn't sure how I wanted to do this in terms of if I wanted to go chronologically or if I wanted to go by like worst to best or whatever. But what I've decided I think works for me and my brain is chronologically. So I'm just gonna kind of start at the beginning of the month and then work through my most recent read. I also, to determine my star rating, my brain, there's so much going on in here that I need a system for pretty much anything I do. So I use the Copile rating system because to me it makes the most sense and I get to kind of break down my rating a bit further, and I love to be specific. So I will also include my Copile rating in case you care, just so you kind of have a feel for how I arrived at the star rating that I arrived at. So the first book that I read in September was The Vanishing Star by Maureen Johnson, which is the second book in the Truly Devious trilogy. This story takes place at Ellingham Academy, which is like a prestigious private school in Vermont. Students at this school are like hand selected, and they basically each have a very specific area of study, and this school allows them to pursue whatever their specific area of interest is. In 1936, the founder of this academy's wife and daughter are murdered, and it's like this big unsolved case. Stevie, our main character's area of expertise or area of study is true crime or crime. She wants to work for the FBI, she wants to solve crimes. So basically she's here at this academy to solve the murder from 1936. And then we kind of see history start to repeat itself. So we follow 2 timelines, the one in 1936 when the original murder is happening, and then we follow Stevie in present day who is attending the academy. I liked the first book. I gave it 3 stars, which not a bad 3 stars. I think can go either way in terms of like I was disappointed or yeah, it was solid. Truly Devious was like it was solid 3 stars. I really liked it. It did read a little bit young for me, and that's because I don't tend to read a lot of YA. So it read a little bit on the younger side, but overall I really liked a lot of the themes, and I liked the mystery thriller thing, and I liked the setting and the atmosphere. So in reading the second book, kind of went into it knowing what to expect. And what I actually found is that it took a lot of the things that the first book did really well and kind of moved past the YA tropes that I wasn't like a huge fan of or don't really need in a book that I kind of found in the first one. So because I felt like I kind of knew the story going in and knew what I liked and what I didn't like about it, I felt like it, for me and my reading taste, took all the things that I really liked about the first book and ran with those and kind of left some of the YA specific things in the first book. So I gave the second book a bit higher of a rating than I did the first book. There were some things that still kind of felt or read a little bit younger to me. Like they used the word rando in this book, and I was like, maybe I'm done. But just like things like that I just felt like, yikes. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I'm reading the third book right now, so I fully plan on finishing this series. I really like it. I just don't tend to like fully love a YA book. Sue me. The next book that I read was Mr. Fox by Helen Oyeyemi. This is the book that I have no idea how to assign one genre to. In this book, you are following a writer, Mr. Fox, who can't stop killing off the heroines of his stories. He has a muse who is trying to help him kind of overcome this, and they kind of chase each other through different stories. It's gonna sound very confusing. It's basically about love and about art and about ambition, and God, I really liked this. It is very meta. It is very weird. It is very confusing. It is inventive. It is incredibly honest. And it made me work really, really hard to enjoy it, which I really like. I felt like I put in the work I needed to get what I wanted to out of the story, and God, I just really liked it. If you're not a fan of like speculative, like meta fiction, I don't know that you would love this, just because I feel like it really was that. But if you're interested in anything that's like a little bit weird or a little bit outside of the box, and you are a character-driven reader, I think this is something that would super appeal to you. I feel like it had such a distinct voice, and I feel like the writing and the word choice was so sure-footed. Like every choice in every word was so deliberate, and I feel like it was beautiful writing and flowery and over-the-top writing, but with a surprising amount of clarity to it. It felt like reading a fable or a fairy tale. Like it felt like there was just meaning through every single word, but it was written in a whimsical, over-the-top way. Does that make sense? For instance, there is a line where one of the characters is climbing up a ladder, like onto a roof, and the way that they describe it is stepping quickly into the sky. It felt like a fairy tale. I don't know. I really liked it. Can you tell? There's like a general narrative, and then there are little short stories throughout because you're following like a writer. Some of them I felt were more successful than others. My favorites were My Daughter the Racist, Hide, Seek, and then Like This. It is super weird and it is super over the top, but I highly recommend this. The next book I read, I'm like so excited about. I've wanted to read this book for forever. It was on my like list of 10 books I really, really, really wanted to finally get to in 2020. So I'm stoked to have read it. And that book is The Picture of Dorian Gray. I'm not super well versed in classics, but this is one that I've wanted to get to just story-wise. It sounds really, really interesting to me. I actually had never read anything by Oscar Wilde, so I wasn't sure if I was going to find the writing accessible. Turns out I did. All I thought for the first like 20% of this book was, wow, incredible. The first chapter is mostly dialogue, and it was wonderful. So, so good. If you are unfamiliar with this story, which my grandma was, and she's an English teacher, I truly don't understand that. But if you, like my grandma, are unfamiliar with this story, I'm gonna interject real quick. I am editing this, and I talked for like 10 minutes about the plot of this book, and that's just unbelievably unnecessary. I'm just gonna quickly explain the plot. Dorian Gray is young and beautiful and interesting and talented, and when he is confronted with his beauty in the form of a portrait painted of him by a friend, like as a gift, he makes a wish so that he may stay young and beautiful and pure, and the painting will kind of grow old in his stead. So you get this really cool corruption arc. You get a really interesting character. This was a study in passion and the senses and whim. The dialogue throughout this book was unbelievable. It had a similar approach as the book You by Carolyn Kepnes does, where it kind of justifies its protagonist's actions, and you as the reader justify them as well, because you're seeing them firsthand or within a set of parameters. I don't know. I felt like I got a lot of the same feeling from reading both books. Like, can't recommend this enough. And because of how much I love the writing in this, I will read anything and everything by Oscar Wilde. Next is a book that I've owned for like a year because of the cover. So that book was Meddling Kids by Edgar Contero. Can you believe that cover? Can you believe that? That's insane. It's the craziest cover. Oh, so cool. Love that so much. Cover aside, this book got 3 stars. You're basically following this group of teen detectives, very Scooby-Doo-esque, who have now grown up, who are now kind of coming back together to revisit their last case. It was such a cute idea. I grew up on Nancy Drew. So there was a lot of references to Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, Lovecraft, and like the obvious Scooby-Doo references. It was just a really cute idea and concept for a book. Even though it kind of invoked all that nostalgia, it still definitely felt and read like an adult version of that story. Once I kind of like fell into the writing a little bit more, I was able to appreciate it. But it's also got some different formatting in here. Like there are some scenes of dialogue that are just like person A, person B, like almost like a transcript. It was cute. I mean, it's a horror book, so it's not like fun and nothing really happened. I mean, it's definitely like, it gets a little bit dark. And that's, I think, kind of where it toes the line between feeling like a Scooby-Doo story and feeling like an adult story, because it does get a little bit darker. It does have adult themes, but it definitely was still like, overall, I would call this cute. It was very tongue-in-cheek. It was a little bit gay, which is fun. Overall, I don't think this is a book that's gonna like stick with me. Even now I'm having trouble like remembering specifics to kind of touch on, but I thought it was cute. Love the cover. And it's like a fun way to like segue into the more spooky books I'm gonna pick up, you know, this season. Okay, the next book I read, I read Goblet of Fire this month. I'm gonna kind of say my piece on this and then literally never talk about it again. A, it's not a book or a series that I feel like I need to sit here and talk to you about my thoughts and feelings about as a book and a story. But B, I don't feel like I want to speak too much on it in general. I understand people who are boycotting this and, you know, boycotting J.K. Rowling specifically. Like, I get all that. The reason that I feel, I don't want to say justified or okay with or whatever, because that's not really what it is. But the reason that I consciously read Goblet of Fire this month is because it's not my first time with the series. Whether I reread the books every single month and talk about them and watch the movies or not, I will think about Harry Potter until I die. Because I grew up with the story, I was able to separate the art from the artist in this case long ago. I think that's what made Harry Potter so successful growing up, was that Harry Potter does not belong to J.K. Rowling. It belongs to me. And it belongs to every person, I think, who grew up with it. So while I do not even remotely condone the things she has said and the things she has done, she is a horrible viper of a person, I will never stop caring about Harry Potter. If this were my first time reading the books, I would have more than enough ammunition to throw this away and never pick it up again. However, as it stands, Harry Potter is so ingrained in who I am as a person and a reader that I can't drop it completely. Like I said, I'm not here to promote the books or talk about them in depth or give my opinions, but I'm not gonna pretend like they don't exist. I can pretend like J.K. Rowling doesn't exist because that woman is garbage, but the books are special to me. I'm going to mention that I have read it because it goes towards my overall page count, but I am not here to talk about the story or the books or the author. Like I said, I'm fully supportive of people who are moving on from this series or not continuing with their read through of it or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it anymore. That being said, let's just move on. Okay. The next book I read is a book that I feel stupid for reading when I did, because the last round of Buzzword-a-thon was this month and the word was night. And I picked up this book this month and just didn't read it during the Buzzword-a-thon, which is just dumb. But I read The Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This was a 3-star read for me. I liked it. It was solid. Because it's so short, it's hard for me to give like a synopsis. So basically what I'll say is there's a group of friends who basically have this mannequin and they've used it for like pranks and stuff growing up. They're a little bit older now and we're following Sawyer, who is one of the friends, who basically decides to like pull one last prank with the mannequin, and the mannequin comes to life. I mean, like I said, it's super short. It's like 140 pages or something, 130 pages. Super short. So, I mean, I think if this is something that interests you, check it out because it's so quick. Super fast paced, super fun, super weird, funny, fucked up. It felt a little bit like just a spiral into insanity. Is this a book that's gonna like stick with me? Not really. But because it was so short and so fun, it's something that I can definitely see myself recommending to people who I think can handle it, because it is a little bit fucked up. I don't know, it's so short that I feel like I don't really have much to say. I liked it. Good book. It was good. Okay, so the next book that I read surprised the crap out of me. I, like I said, do not read a lot of young adult books. So because I missed the train on this growing up, I just kind of never considered reading it. But my sister has read it, and I let her pick a book for me to read this month. So I thought it was gonna kind of be like an at random pick from my bookshelf, which would have been fine. But because she has read it and wanted to see what I thought, she ended up picking The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I was so honestly not expecting to like love this, just because I really thought I wasn't gonna care. And to some extent, that is true. However, this book ended up getting 4 stars from me. This book, I don't even know if I can concisely give a synopsis. Let me think. Basically, our main character, Blue, is from a family of like clairvoyants, and she has been told her entire life that if she kisses her true love, he will die. Blue doesn't have the abilities that the rest of her family has, but somehow she is connected to this boy named Gainsey, who is a part of a group of 4 boys, the Raven Boys. And Blue and this group of boys basically come together to go on this like lifelong quest of Gainsey's to find, oh my god, like this sleeping king who will basically grant you a wish if you wake him up. It sounds like I don't know what this book is about, but there's just like, it's the first book in a series. So we're gonna get more into everything as it goes. I can't tell you specifically. I don't know how much more specific I can get. For the first like 25 to 30%, I just couldn't get into the story. I didn't know who any of the characters were. When I was reading it, I was like, who? I just felt like there was too much going on. We switched perspectives a lot. So there were so many different points of view, so many different characters in just the first few chapters that I was overwhelmed. And because of that, I couldn't like get into the story. It is written beautifully. I loved the writing in this. It's another book that felt to me a little bit like a fairy tale. I care so much about Blue's family. Tarot and that sort of thing is something that has interested me in general for a while. It's just like I think it's cool and I'm like into the aesthetic or whatever. God, that's embarrassing. But because of my specific interest in that, I loved Blue's family. I loved going to their readings. I loved the household. I love how chaotic and on top of each other everybody is. I love how much everybody cares about each other. God, I loved her family. The main storyline with like the boys and like the ley lines and the sleeping king and whatever, that I don't want to say didn't appeal to me, because it's not that. It's just that they could have been looking for seashells and it would have had the same effect on me or same impact on me. It just wasn't anything I super cared about or was invested in or whatever. Like in this case, it's not really why I was reading this book. It's not that I don't care, like in a bad way. I just don't care. I don't care. I am, however, so glad that I read this in like the fall season, because it felt like fall to me. I feel like in YA, characters sometimes are a bit more like caricatures than real characters to me. I think I find sometimes they're a bit over the top or over-explained. So there were definitely times where I was just like fully sick of Ronan's shit or like Adam's pride or whatever. Like there were times when the characters individually didn't do it for me, but as a whole I like the group and I like the group dynamic and the friendships and whatever. I don't know that it's not like high on my priority list, like to get around to the rest of the series, but it is on my like long list of things I want to read. Okay. After that, I read a book. Obviously. I read The Shadows by Alex North. In this book, you're following a man named Paul, who, when he was younger, I think it's like 25 years ago, he is loosely involved in a murder. This murder is so notorious in the area that there have been several copycat murders, and now we're basically following Paul today when he has to go back to his hometown because his mother is sick. So he's kind of revisiting the scene and the memories, and in the midst of that, there is an investigation into a very similar case. So this was a 3-star book. I wanted so badly to care about this for a lot of different reasons. I just like a mystery thriller and I like a child murderer and the cover looks like A Clockwork Orange, which is my favorite movie of all time. On paper, this should have been for me 100%. I didn't care about this at all. Like, this book literally put me in a reading slump. I really had trouble finishing this book or wanting to pick it up. The pacing in this was really rough. It felt for most of the book, like until like page 250 of a 320 page book, it felt like things were just happening to people. Like, it felt like nobody made an active decision until like page 250. You're following this guy who's just kind of wandering through memories, and I just felt like no one was active at all in this story until, like I said, like part 3 of this book. I loved the relationship between Paul and his mother. It is super complicated, and because she is not doing well, he's kind of confronted with that relationship over and over again, and I loved the way that that was explored. So, I mean, overall, I was super disappointed by this. It wasn't bad. Like, overall, there were things I did enjoy about it, and I liked a lot of the storytelling elements. I just didn't really like how they were done. The next book I read, I'm honestly frustrated to have to even talk about. As I've said, Buzzwordathon was this month. The word was night. So I kind of tried to focus on books that I've had on my list for a while as potential maybe I'd like that books that I could put into this week. So the first book that I decided I was gonna read was Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. Like, the fact that I have to sit here and rehash this book is like making me mad. I don't even want to like tell you what it's about. In this book, you follow Mia Corvera, whose family is like destroyed when she's young. She vows revenge, and basically as an adult, I don't even know how old she is, 16, as a grown-up, she goes to like an assassin training school to learn how to take revenge in the way that she wants, because the people she wants revenge on are all like high-ranking political figures. This book got 2 stars from me, and I am shocked that it got 2 stars, but mathematically, that's what it got. If I hadn't been using like the Cawpile system, this would have been 1 star because of how angry I am to be sitting here talking to you about it. But I love a system, so let's just go with the system rating, which was a 2. And to be fair, it like scraped over the line into a 2 star. Like, this was almost a 1. Honestly, I just like, I have nothing to say. It's exhausting for me to have to think about this book. The writing killed me. The sex scenes like fucking hurt. The characters are boring as shit. Stupid shit would happen and I wouldn't even question it or like think twice about it because of how unrealistic and dumb I thought these characters were. The only thing, and I mean only thing I liked about this, is that it took place like at a training academy. I liked the school setting, and I liked that there were like classes and like skills to master. Honestly, this book just like gave me a fucking migraine. So I had to change the battery, so if everything is different, I apologize. The next book that I read has legitimately like thrown me into a depression. Night Film by Marisha Pessl. This book follows an investigative journalist who is reporting on the mysterious circumstances surrounding the death of Ashley Cordova. Ashley Cordova is the daughter of Stanislaus Cordova, who is this like infamous, reclusive cult horror director. So you're kind of following the investigation into Ashley's death and kind of how her father's career and life may have impacted it or whatever. This, literally, I've wanted to read this book for like 5 years. Like, I just keep thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for years, and then it's just, I never get around to it. And so I put it on my list of 10 books I wanted to read this year. And because of Buzzwordathon, I thought, perfect timing. This was a fucking 1-star book. I hated this book so much. I hated the writing. And I don't want to knock it. Yes, I do. I don't want to attribute all of that to just the book in general, because I do think it reads a bit like a film noir. So maybe it's meant to be like over the top and over dramatic and over stylized because it's meant to kind of be like a film noir. I just don't care about that. I hate it. Oh my God. Like, I'm pissed off. And I'm so upset because I wanted to like it so much. This book tried so hard. And the only thing it managed to succeed at was being offensive at literally every turn. The way it talked about women, the way it talked about mental health, the way it talked about people of any color, the way it talked, just like every single subject matter this book broached was done in just the worst possible way. There was nothing believable about a character in this book. Everything that happened, I was like, no way would that have happened. No way would you invite a random guy you just met who you were interviewing for a potential connection to the crime. No way would you invite that man on the next interview you're going on. He's invited himself on this investigation, and all you can say is like, fine, but I'm doing the talking. No way. I like am gonna get mad. There was a line that I wrote down because I was like, what the fuck? This guy is talking about some camp he went to when he was younger for like troubled youth. He literally said, craziest kids I've ever seen in my life. Bulimics, nymphos, cutters. How? How did any of this get published? It's harmful. It's bad. It's downright just not good. I have so much to say, and I just can't even get into it right now because I just don't have the energy, that I might do a whole ass like rant review for this book. They found a receipt from a tattoo shop for $363.24. First of all, no tattoo shop has ever given a receipt ever. Second of all, you pay in cash and it's a whole number. No fucking 24-cent bullshit. That's insane. Oh my God, I'm so mad. I have to be done with this book. I have to stop talking about it. Okay, so after I had moved on from the biggest disappointment of my life, I read the first volume of Something is Killing the Children, which is a super short little comic series that is pretty new into its publication, so there's not too much of the story. A bunch of children are going missing or turning up dead in the town of Archer's Peak, and this like mysterious girl comes to the town to help take care of the problem. There's not too much to say about this because it's pretty short. This was a pretty solid like 3-star. It was super fun. It's pretty gory. This is something that I will continue kind of as it comes out, but there's not too much out, even in terms of individual comic issues that have been published. So as it kind of gets released, this is something I would like to read a little bit more of. It was just fun and quick and a nice palate cleanser after the 2 most horrible books I've read in a long time. And the last book that I read in September was one of my most anticipated books of the entire year. It came out on the 29th, and I read it on the 29th. And that is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I have loved Matt Haig in the past, so I was really excited to give this a try, especially considering what it's about. I'm going to read a line from the book that I think kind of gives you a really good idea of what this book is about and kind of what it does. Between life and death, there is a library. And within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be different if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different if you had the chance to undo your regrets? So basically you're following a depressed, suicidal woman who arrives at this library and kind of has the chance to see how her life would have changed had she done any of the things that she feels like she failed at. I am thrilled to tell you that this was a 5-star book. I am so excited about this. I loved it. I really like Matt Haig's writing style. I like it in the way that I like Neil Gaiman, where I feel like it's conversational and it's super simple, but super impactful. Because of his writing style, I always find myself like ready to jump into the story. I am like in from page 1 because I feel like it's really accessible. This, like everything I've ever read from him, felt very honest and introspective and personal, but it also felt like it was about me specifically. Because I could relate to this so much, I was hooked from the very beginning. I was so invested that I literally cried on page 63. Like by page 63, I was already sobbing. There's a lot of things about this book that I could identify with, everything from like mental health to music to philosophy. I have a tattoo that says "Still Feel." It is the title of a song that I really like. And this book felt like the expansive version of that tattoo. At about the halfway point, I thought this story was going to like take a turn, and I was not looking forward to that. And then it didn't. That was just like a little thing that happened, and it wasn't a shift in the story. So honestly, this really did everything I wanted it to do. Also, as like a fun little trivial like element of this book is there was a lot of like environmental messages throughout, from everything from the character being like vegan and caring about the environment to this repeated like depiction of like the tree of life. Our main character's name is Nora Seed, and another really important character is named Mrs. Elm. And they refer to things like a root life and branches of your life and the tree of life. And so I thought that was really cool and like a nice touch. It's hard for me to get into the specifics of this book because it is so personal. And there are like so many things and so many lines and so many moments that I felt in my soul. Like all these like markings in here are times where I just felt like, wow, that's about me. I don't even know what else to say. I'm just so glad that I loved this as much as I did. If you haven't been waiting on bated breath for this book like I have, and this is somehow the first time you're hearing about this book on my channel, I implore you to pick this book up. I loved this. So that pretty much covers everything I've read this month. My cats are starting to wild out behind me, so this is gonna turn real chaotic real quick. So I'm gonna wrap this bad boy up. If you have any book recommendations based on my thoughts and feelings, throw them at me. If you wanna talk, okie dokie. Thanks for being here. Peace out.